Hey, Nico here from Zambezi Flora. We're going to do a bit of a Christmas Day nursery and plot tour. It's a quiet day here around the farm. Not much is happening at the moment. Everybody has the day off. We're taking it easy. It's not raining. In the last, actually this year has been exceptionally for rain. We've had just about 400 millimeters so far, which is well above average. If we got 250 mils by this time of year, we're normally pretty happy. But this year has just been raining upon raining. I think there's only 5 days so far this month where we haven't had any rain. And everything has just shot up into growth. It's so green, it's so lush. Grasses are growing like stink, weeds are growing like stink. So there's been quite a bit that we've had to do to try and keep some of the indigenous from being overgrown. But let's go have a look and see what there is. This bit of a brute of a perennial clump is Aneilema johnstonii in the Commelinaceae family. Unlike most of the other Commelinas that we have on the farm here, this one isn't a creeper or a spreader. This is a clump-forming perennial growing from a base each year. Thankfully, it's also not all that aggressive. You know, it's increased slowly a bit over the last few years, but comes up with these kind of long-lasting sprays of orangey yellow flowers, and then has kind of this nice, as I say, the kind of clumping habit, which is quite attractive and very useful in the woodland area here. Just in behind that, the rose ginger, Siphonochilus kirkii, are flowering up a storm. They've been flowering for the last, maybe 3-4 weeks or so. And they also have quite of a long period of flowering. This one is without the kind of red mark on the side of the labellum, but I'll show another population around the farm that also does have that. And then this year as well, actually, we've had such a proliferation of these little white, I think these are Commelinaceae mushrooms. These would have an association with termites here, and it's just spread. You can just see them kind of all over the area here underneath the canopy, just popping up. They've really enjoyed all this wet weather, I think. So here we have that rose ginger, again, Siphonochilus kirkii, with those red markings then beside the yellow on the labellum. I guess these ones do tend to be a little darker pink when they have that. But it's nice to kind of have the genetic range on the farm of the lighter pink flowers as well as these darker ones. Then we come over to this massive clump of Chlorophytum macrophyllum. This is one of the larger flowered Chlorophytum species that we have. Just the inflorescence alone has to be about 1 meter tall. Then with just dozens and upon dozens of these beautiful star-like white flowers. These have also been flowering over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Probably going to finish up in the next week or two. But as you can see, this clump here has definitely, has definitely benefited from all the rain that we've had. I think this is the biggest that they've ever been. And just such a fantastic species of the Chlorophytum genus to grow and enjoy in the woodland garden. As a bit of a contrast to the Chlorophytum macrophyllum that we just saw, here we've got Chlorophytum galpinii. I believe this is variety matabalense. Very, very different. Kind of very lax sprays of flowers here on plants with very grass-like leaves, but a nice little dainty species then to have growing as well. Well, yet another Chlorophytum. These ones are mass planted. They would normally grow as single plants, maybe slightly clumped forming plants, but widespread, whereas all of these that I've grown from seed in the last few years, I wanted to give kind of a mass feel of it. And you can't quite make out the ones that are a little beyond then in the sun, just back here. But there's, 30 or so plants here, each popping up their long inflorescences, with these, again, white star-like flowers, slightly more closed than with the macrophyllum or galpinii, and then set on, again, more kind of slightly broader but still grass-like leaves, effectively. Really useful clumped up like this in the woodland / grassland garden area, looking fantastic. And then just behind on this raised trunk bed, we have Bulbine abyssinica. This one I haven't been able to bulk up very much because it's the only plant that I have. This is a deciduous member of the genus. These grass-like, quite succulent leaves will go dry and retreat back to the rhizome underground during the dry season, just to pop up again with these fantastic bright yellow flowers. So glad to have this one, but I would love to have a few more of these growing around the garden. Now we have one of the earlier flowering forms of Gladiolus dalenii here, the parrot's beak Gladiolus. This one has actually been quite instrumental in a lot of the hybridization of the Gladiolus that has happened. Just growing here on the edge of the kind of wild grassland area from where I mow to where the grass is allowed to grow longer. These guys, we have them planted all over the farm. Some of them are up now, others will be flowering in another short period of time. Still others won't come into flower until maybe even middle of January, with a later flowering form that I've also got that actually has more of a color spectrum. So when those are up, I'll do another video so you can see from reds through to kind of oranges to pure yellow in some cases as well. Here's one of the sprawling, kind of out of control Commelinas. This is, well, to tell you the truth, I don't ever really try and identify these guys. They're quite difficult. But it has these kind of lovely bluish, almost sky blue flowers. These stems grow from a central point, creep out, root at the nodes, and it just becomes a bit of a mass. So out here in the slightly woodland / grassland margin, I don't mind him spreading as he is doing, but within more of an area where I want to keep a little control, these guys are difficult. You're pulling them out all the time. This is a sprawling shrub in the Lamiaceae family, the mint family, Hoslundia opposita. The flowers are quite small. I don't know if I'll be able to really, where is it? There it is. The flowers are quite small. They don't really make too much of an appearance, but it's the fruits, these little orange fruits that do stand out quite nicely. And it's now just starting to really put on fruit, but you can kind of see, there it is over there, still sprawling. So, this started as a smaller shrub, just incidentally. I didn't plant this, maybe brought in by something, I'm not exactly sure. But over the last several years, it's really started to sprawl and take up space, which I'm quite all right with. So I think this year I will actually try and collect the seeds and grow them. I've tried it from tip cuttings of the stems, but that hasn't worked. So whether or not it's possible, I'm not sure, but for me, it hasn't worked as of yet. Here we've got another of the flowering shrubs. This is Clerodendrum frutectorum. Absolutely beautiful in flower with these very long perianth tubes, or corolla tubes, sorry. Just quite stunning when it's flowering en masse. This one has just started flowering, although there are more flowers coming on those inflorescences. This is actually quite a large shrub. It's a bit of a monster, to tell you the truth. Here we've got it running from root suckers that seem to pop up. I'm constantly trying to keep this one within bounds. It's a bit of a losing battle many a case, but I go through and pull out these kinds of sucker growths several times a year and just try and keep, you know, main clump there, just so that I can at least enjoy these when they come up. So once you have it planted in the garden, this thing will never die because it just continually spreads itself. But it is naturally occurring on the farm here. I didn't bring this in. I found it growing and have been protecting it, maybe to my detriment in the last, 10 or so years. As I said at the beginning of the video, the weeds have just kind of really gotten out of control. And here we have Freesia grandiflora in the Iridaceae family, just kind of a little bit swamped by blackjack, Biden's pilosa, as well as this, what's the name of this? I can't remember. I'll put it on the screen though, which is an indigenous. This guy is indigenous, but he just grows like stink. And right now I want the Freesia to be taking center stage. This is an area that I haven't quite gotten around to weeding yet. There's actually quite a number of other things growing in here that I'll need to free up as well. But it is nice to see this guy at least kind of rising above the weeds for the time being and able to flower. Such a beautiful flower. I'm hoping that he will at least spread in this area a little bit more. This is the pure yellow form of the rose ginger, Siphonochilus kirkii. It used to be under Siphonochilus carsonii and decorus, I believe, but has been, since those names have been sunk under synonymy with kirkii. It has just these pure yellow flowers, slight with a darker yellow mark again on the labellum. Not as prolific as the more common pink form, said to occur in higher rainfall areas. I was lucky enough to get a few plants from the late Mike Bingham before he passed, and have been growing these and hopefully bulking them up. I see they've actually had some decent seed set there. If these pods properly ripen and I can harvest them before the ants get to them, I'm hoping to bulk these up quite a bit, because it is really nice, bright yellow. The Amorphophallus mossambickense have long since passed over their flowering period, but the fantastic kind of umbrella-like leaves are now opening, oftentimes nicely mottled, as you can see along the base of the leaf stalk here. But they are now in fruit, and these nice orange berries are up. I used to collect and grow all of these, but in the last several years I've just kind of left them, and the birds will normally come and pick them off and disperse it around. So they do provide a nice little bit of shot of color at this time of year. That is, not as common underneath the woodland, comparatively to some of the other colors like the whites of the Chlorophytum and things like that. But it is nice just to then have these also just as an attractant to the birds. I can't really do a Christmas Day video without highlighting the Christmas lily, which is one of the names that Gloriosa superba has here in Zambia, generally because they are out and flowering around Christmas. This is a collection I made not too far here from the farm here, with stems that might get to about 1 meter tall. This one's not very big. A few flowered inflorescence, but with these bright red tepals, reflexed tepals. The ones that we have here on the plot are actually more of a yellowy brown to yellowy purple kind of flower. They don't quite stand out like this. And our plants do grow much, much taller. So I'll see if any of those are flowering to show the contrast. This is the more kind of common one that we have on the plot. A little more yellow in there, kind of a purpley color to the upper part of the tepals. This one is much more sprawling. It doesn't have anything to support it, so it kind of fell onto the grasses and is sprawling over those. Still a lovely flower, but doesn't quite stand out, in my opinion, as much as the bright red, scarlet red form. So I've now moved into the nursery. You can actually still see one of the little Costa spectabilis flowers that is still up and going. These guys are pretty much finished. Seeds will be forming, hopefully we'll harvest those in a bit of time. Here we've got Aphrosolon erythranthera. This used to be Vaporussia erythranthera, but has been renamed. This has kind of a color spectrum. So these ones are a little more purple. Then you've got these that are a little bit more pink. It's a lovely member of the Iridaceae family. I'm not sure if it's very long-lived or if it's very short-lived. I have populations of these that will grow and flower and then seemingly disappear from an area only to reappear, a little while later. There's actually another species in here. We've got Aphrosolon rivularis. Very similar in appearance when you're looking at the flowers face on, but when you put them sideways, these guys are much more kind of bell-shaped in profile, whereas the Erythranthera, they're more open, kind of flat. I don't know if that's as easily visible on the video here, but lovely to have both of them growing. We'll be getting the seeds from this year and starting more. Just as I say, because of their short-lived nature, I kind of have to propagate them regularly and replant. Right next to it, we've got one of my favorite Siphonochilus species. This is Siphonochilus vanmillii. Actually, this is a very, very Christmassy type of plant, because these red, I don't know if I can really show this very well, these red hairs on the stems just stand out so well. They're just such a lovely feature of the plant. They've only just literally, I think this morning, started flowering, as is usual for a Siphonochilus, quite small, relatively insignificant looking flowers. But I grow these for their form. Now, vanmillii can be either an erect, self-supporting shrub or sometimes climbing. These last year did not produce tendrils. They are this year, so I don't know whether or not, I don't think it wants to climb so much as just looking for something to grab onto for support, because you can see it's the taller stems that are seeking to put out their tendrils. Here is quite a number of the Scadoxus, the fireball lilies that are growing up, sizing up for next year. We'll dig these, but what I wanted to show is this here, which last year started showing some signs of variegation. And, I kind of held my breath. I wasn't sure if that was just a one-season issue or whether or not it was going to be stable. And I'm very happy that it seems to be stable. Quite a nice little patterning on that. And we'll see again next year if it holds true into a third year. And then maybe, another year or two, then I'll get to see what the flowers look like on that. But I'm quite excited about that plant. As part of my work managing the Chikanda Conservation Project, which did finish in 2019, I was actually buying tubers from the marketplaces here in Zambia. So chikanda, for those who don't know, is a foodstuff, a local foodstuff that is actually made from the tubers, edible tubers, of a range of different orchid species, terrestrial orchid species. And the tubers are harvested in rural areas, usually then transported into major urban areas, where it is then bought and made into chikanda, which is kind of like a cake-like consistency and appearance. However, I've been buying the tubers over the last several years, planting them in the nursery to then see what is going to grow, in hopes of being able to try and identify different species. So here we have two. This is Habenaria Schimperiana, very easily recognizable with the kind of almost 90-degree bend between the pedicel and the ovary. These nice kind of like dancing white flowers in the wind, they kind of dance about. This is usually a plant of very wet grasslands, although surprisingly, it has grown very, very well for me here in the nursery. Let's see if I can't get a nice kind of close-up of the flowers. Not the showiest of species, but still quite a nice one for its section in Habenaria. And as you can see, then there's another specimen just in behind. So they've actually done quite well. I've had a bit of success growing this species from seed, and trials to see if we can't figure out a way of domesticating chikanda and commercializing it so the wild populations are not as effective. Will be useful if we can grow these from seed and start breeding to select for specimens that will grow multiple tubers. Then right beside it, we have Platycorrhini buchanani. Very easily noticed when you're out in the bush. These also tend to grow in wet grassland areas, usually referred to as dambos here in Zambia. There's a number of different Platycorrhini species, all fairly similar looking, and you need effectively to have a specimen to key out to tell which one is which. But again, it has grown quite well for me, and you can see actually by the number of them flowering in here at the moment that they seem to be very, very happy. This is another Habenaria species. This is the first flowering this year actually in the nursery, and a nice kind of ability now to confirm that this species is also harvested for chikanda. This has kind of a very different look comparatively to the Schimperiana that we just saw, but still quite beautiful in its own right. Very insect-like, these flowers, which isn't much of a stretch for actually quite a number of our species of Habenaria in Zambia. So I've hand-pollinated a number of these. Hope to get a good amount of seed. Let's see here. Yeah, you can just make out there. Well, maybe it's too shaded, but that ovary there has swollen quite a bit, so it seems like that cross has worked quite well. And yeah, we'll hope to grow some more of these. Here is another Habenaria. This is actually one of the first types I got to flower in cultivation from tubers I bought from the market. This is Habenaria holubii. Very similar to clavata, but the lip side lobes on these are very short. They're quite a bit shorter than what would be on clavata. Actually, maybe I'll have to check that. I could have it the other way around at the moment. Lovely plants, usually of woodland or grassland settings. Have a nice kind of light, sweet fragrance in the evenings. But again, quite targeted for the chikanda trade. We have another Chlorophytum here. This one I have not been able to identify definitively the species yet. It is very similar to Chlorophytum pulsillum, only pulsillum has an inflorescence that usually doesn't exceed 3 centimeters, and as you can see, This one is, you know, probably about 15 to 20 centimeters tall. I've actually made some herbarium specimens of this year in hopes of getting it properly identified, ideally at the EDFAT Congress, which hopefully will be going ahead in March of next year, you know, pandemic permitting. And it would be nice to be able to finally get a name to this one, even if it just turns out to be a new variety of Pulsillum. But Pulsillum is just over here in flower, and you can see quite the difference in that inflorescence. These guys are barely even shooting up about a centimeter tall at the moment. They do come into flower a little later than the taller inflorescence one that we just saw, but are very, very interesting little plants to grow. Quite easy to grow in a pot still. I have these here planted in a nice kind of shaded area on the edge of one of the raised beds, and they seem to like it and do very well every year. You can actually even see some seedlings of them starting to pop up just here. So very easy to grow and well worth growing if you like tiny little things. There's yet another Chlorophytum in bloom. This is Chlorophytum columbrinum. It has these fantastic spikes of white flowers as usual, although the flower color of Chlorophytum doesn't vary too much. But this one, these are all plants that have been grown from seed last year, the year before. Sorry, actually no, it's about 2 years ago because of the fact that they are now flowering size. These guys are just kind of waiting to get planted out into the yard, which I haven't accomplished yet. But these white flowers are then kind of made a little bit more interesting also by, let's see if I can get it, the kind of mottling or striping at the base of the plants. Not a huge feature to say is hugely ornamental because you would rarely see it, but does make it actually a very good feature in terms of identification of these plants. Because again, grass-like leaves, but then these tall flower stalks, usually with leaf bracts on it, and then the flowers themselves are single-noded, as opposed to many other members of the genus which have multiple nodes, or multiple flowers, per node. So it makes it quite an easy one to then be able to identify. And yeah, no, it's just another fantastic member of that kind of mid-range flowering species that I'm trying to push to grow more of. So I'm just going to finish off the video here on our back patio. This is where I kind of have my nice area to sit back and relax with a lot of the more either water demanding plants or things that require a little bit more shade that I can't accommodate anywhere else. But I do also have some indigenous stuff here, just to enjoy it when it's in bloom. So this is Siphonochilus mesoiensis. This is in the Commelinaceae family, fairly closely related to lobelia, the kind of regular bedding plants in the West and many other places. This is a perennial. It grows from little tubers and then sends up these kind of scrambling, twining stalks that would twine around shrubbery and things like that to get into the light so that you could flower well. This is kind of like a pale pink form. They also come in kind of purples to red colors, sometimes even yellow, I believe, although I've never found those myself. Just a lovely one to have, and usually I haven't displayed it as nicely as this year, having the little trellis thing to grow it on. And they just kind of sprawl in the nursery, so I put that in this year, then I can at least enjoy the flowers when they come up. And next to it, we have one of the smallest little terrestrial orchids here in Zambia, which is actually flowering at the moment, although I don't know if I'll be able to focus on the flowers at all. Let's see here. You can just kind of make them out. I think I need a slightly better background. This is Malaxis catangensis. I'd have to look up the variety again because I've forgotten. But these flowers must not be more than 2 or 3 millimeters tall and wide, effectively. Not exactly the most ornamental to be growing, but just kind of an interesting plant to also have and to grow. These guys grow from little cigar kind of shaped tubers, and actually the leaves with this kind of slight corrugated effect or ribbing effect are quite nice, but just a bit of an oddity in this one here. And then we also have another Habenaria. This is Habenaria debierstiana. This is the first flowering of this species from tubers that I bought as Chicanda several years back. This is in the section Diphylae. A lovely, lovely section. Has so many ornamental species in that, with these very large white, the white 3-lobed lip, the white petals that are connected to the dorsal sepal. So you just see that kind of little ring of green just going through, which would be the dorsal sepal, and then the petals are attached to that on either side with the white. Very easy to distinguish because the spur, if you can just make it out behind there, is less than 1 centimeter long. So a very easy member of Diphylae to identify, including the entire petals rather than the petals being 2-lobed as they are with many of the other species in the section. And a nice kind of tall, many-flowered inflorescence. These flowers have a bit of a jasmine scent in the evenings, so I've actually been keeping this inside to just enjoy that scent at night. But yeah, no, it's fantastic to have this. There looks to be about 2 or so other species, or specimens, sorry, in the nursery that are going to be coming out as this, so I will look to cross and get seed that I can then send on to the Millennium Seed Bank in the UK, as well as keep a few myself to try my hand at growing these guys from seed, because it would be fantastic to be able to produce more of these. So that's going to be it from me today. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Enjoy the holidays. Please stay safe. The coronavirus pandemic isn't quite over just yet, and we will see you all in the new year. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you soon. Cheers.